All right. Yep. So as all you know, we're here to discuss Bedrock for Drupal. AWS Bedrock is a service that provides AI on the AWS side of things, and we'll be talking about a good way to integrate this into Drupal websites. So just a little bit about me. My name is Rob Morris. I'm the principal Drupal engineer here at CTAC, also the developer of the AWS Bedrock chat module. So essentially, this tool is something that can be used to help federal or just any website using Drupal to launch a responsible production-grade AI chatbot very, very quickly. So we say in under an hour because things do have to be set up on the AWS side, but from the Drupal side, it's essentially a 5 minute setup from downloading the module to getting going and from start to finish essentially on your website. So a very quick process. And the whole goal of all of this is to essentially reduce the help desk time, costs, essentially by increasing the findability of content. People come to your website, they want to, be able to see things very quickly instead of having to search here and there. So it's just a very quick, out of the box way to provide a chat AI for your users. So we will be going through the agenda here, which is essentially our walkthrough of the integration of the Bedrock services into our Drupal module, and we'll be covering why this matters, the solution overview that we've come up with, some use cases, a live demo, some best practices, and then we will conclude with a Q&A. So let's just hop right into it and talk about why all of this matters. So essentially, as we all know, expectations are shifting across the board with the rise of AI. People want to be able to use natural language to ask questions and get responses in ways that they understand. I'm sure, as we all know, Google used to be primarily used as searching for specific words, then returning a list of websites that you'd have to scroll through to figure out which website you actually want to go to find the answers you're looking for. Now, with more and more people using services like ChatGPT, we see how Google has quickly had to adapt. And now, when you search, you'll see at the top of your Google searches an AI summary. And this is really a common trend that all big tech companies are moving towards just to keep up with how quick AI is changing. People don't want to have to perform searches and then have to search again through those search results to find what they want. They want services essentially to help them understand, what they're looking for and then provide the answers directly to them. So that's what we're seeing across the board these days. There's also new policies and executive orders and mandates coming out all the time. So this is very big for us in government. A wide range of orders and mandates coming down around AI. One of the big ones was the Executive Order 14110, which was essentially the executive order on AI, and that was considered to be the big umbrella, comprehensive governance for the U.S. regarding artificial intelligence. There was also the OMB Memorandum M2410, which was essentially laying out the federal digital strategy in regards to AI. And of course, the list just goes on since this is an ever evolving subject. And as more and more people are getting involved with AI and new technologies are coming up that rely on it, we see a lot more executive orders and mandates coming out to help facilitate the transition to using these services in government and, of course, in private industries as well. This really helps with a lot of common pain points that people see on their websites. Things like PDFs, which are buried deep down in sites, things that people might have uploaded decades ago, then forgotten about. Long, sprawling pages, especially FAQs, and then just, call centers or help desks and the bandwidth that they have to expend to deal with the users asking for certain items. And that frustration that users might feel also sometimes translates to the employees since they're taking their time to answer the same questions, usually again and again. And a AI solution would essentially bridge that gap to make it so that the employees would have less time to have to deal with that. The users would get their answers instantly, and everyone is going to be a little bit more happy and productive. And so now we will talk about our solution overview for this problem, and that is the AWS Bedrock chat module. And so essentially this module is a Drupal contributed module, currently works with Drupal 10 and 11, and it provides a Bedrock wrapper, an AWS Bedrock wrapper, which just points off to your service on AWS that you would set up separately, and then gives you a very easy to configure and customize block that you can drop into your Drupal site to instantly connect to your Bedrock services and give you answers. So out of the box, this is essentially going to give you support for all of your account enabled knowledge-based queryable models. So these are your Claudes, your Llamas, your Mistrals, etc. And it's by integrating, with AWS Bedrock, it's able to leverage a retrieval augmented generation or RAG. And what this is essentially an AI framework that enhances the outputs of large language models by incorporating information from external knowledge sources. So in this case, a lot of companies could have a ton of files in their uploads folders, or maybe just sitting in an S3 bucket on AWS. Just users would have to go to these one by one. But with a large language model and retrieval augmented generation, it can essentially take all that information, break it down, and be able to provide answers that make sense to users when they ask these questions. Another thing that is provided is agent support. So this module is able to hook up to any AWS Bedrock agents. And agents are essentially a very powerful tool in the realm of AI. They can perform tasks by interacting with different models, APIs, or just any data that you give it access to. Agents can be used to automate tasks. They can answer questions, complete actions on behalf of users. Pretty much anything you can think of with a computer, it can do. It's something you'll see in ChatGPT that they've now rolled out agent support to make it so people can, have a little bit more flexibility in their lives by automating the things that they do normally, that they'd have to do themselves. So a very powerful tool, and essentially will just free up time for, individuals or teams at companies so they can focus on some higher value work, such as, future tasks or the future directions of their business or agency. Another great thing with Bedrock is the multilingual support. So essentially, you can add a custom interface tailored to any language on your Drupal site, and AWS Bedrock is going to be able to understand any language that you give it and respond in kind. It supports 50 plus languages out of the box, and even languages in different characters. It will be able to pick up and understand and respond in kind. And for using this module, we integrate it with the AWS PHP SDK. So it's using all the great things that you get from that out of the box. So it's nothing custom built in terms of the interaction with AWS. So you get the tried and true, SIG FIP essentially connection. So you're going through secure endpoints for your data in transit, which is something that you get with AWS PHP's SDK. So we can now talk about the architecture. So essentially, we start here with Drupal at the top. This is your essentially front-facing website. It takes in the information from the user. It then passes it off to AWS, where the Bedrock knowledge base or agent will pick up on things and take in the request and move from there. It will then pass it through guardrails. So you can set up in AWS guardrails to essentially say, I want the user to be able to do this, but not to be able to do this, kind of boxing them into lanes where they cannot break out of. And then finally, it goes off to your OpenSearch vector storage. You can have, I guess, different kinds of storage, but for this knowledge base, we're using OpenSearch. It's a serverless vector storage, which all of your information gets kind of crunched into and resides on AWS. So it can pull out that information, pass it back through the guardrails, back through Bedrock to perform any final instructions, and finally back to Drupal to render out to the users. All of this is essentially stateful user data that never sits in PHP sessions. So someone coming and looking at session data would not be able to see what users have asked. It automatically just gets passed forward. As I mentioned before, it's a SIG v4 FIPS, which essentially just means that this is using endpoints that ensure that all data in transit is encrypted, using algorithms that are very secure. The FIPS 140 model is essentially what the US government standard is these days. So that's essentially what we are using here, which will make agencies very happy to use. And then the guardrails, as I mentioned, they allow you to configure different things such as, content filters, certain topics that you want to block, redacting PII. So if you had social security numbers in some random document, you can say, I would like to make sure none of that gets passed back through, or profanity threshold to, not respond with any profanity. And Drupal in AWS is essentially going to align automatically with the TIC 3.0 cloud usage, and TIC being the Trusted Internet Connections, which is put out by the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. And it pretty much just outlines security patterns and controls for agencies when using cloud services. So you get a lot of great things essentially out of the box by running this in AWS and in their AWS GovCloud. And we will just move on to a couple of great use cases that this could be used for. So there are a lot of federal agencies out there that can use things like AI to help streamline some of the things that they do. So just a few that come to mind would be GSA, the General Services Administration. So a lot of federal employees go there to look up per diem rates. So if you're off traveling or you have to get a rental car and lunch and whatnot, book a hotel, you would have to look up the per diem rates for specific areas. Using AI to sort of streamline that, you could put in your whole itinerary and get a breakdown of all of the different rates for what you're doing and where you're going. So that's just one thing that GSA handles, as well as contracts. GSA is very big with the contracts for federal usage. So they've got, some of these very long, sometimes tough to understand contracts, and something like a contract clause explainer could be used to kind of break down in plain language what some of those contracts are really getting at. So just a couple use cases for that agency. There's the Consumer Product Safety Commission, CPSC, which essentially puts out a lot of products that have been recalled. So things that affect the American public, such as, cribs or pools or vacuum cleaners or anything that's harmful to the American public that gets recalled, goes through this agency. And essentially, a AI chatbot could help you easily find the things you're looking for some of your consumer goods that you might have questions about. Or if you are running a company yourself, you could help get regulatory answers for your products before they even really get developed. That way you can save time and money from having to go back and change things that might be essentially a no-no that would lead you to be recalled in the future. So just things that essentially would help make things a lot quicker for both a consumer or business to know, what is good to use or not. The IRS, come tax time, a lot of people are very, curious about what sort of things they have to pay. Some people look at their sheets and, don't know what goes in what box. So taxpayer self-servicing could be a great thing, as well as, some of the basic to complex tax-related questions that people have, just being able to give your scenario in your natural language, in any, language that you speak, and getting the response back would be very helpful as well. And then for veteran affairs, just answer to common benefits questions. There's always a lot of different questions around that. And it could also detect the tone of how this conversation is going. So if it needs to hand off to an appropriate division, such as the Veterans Crisis Line, if needed, it could also do that. So just a few use cases on some federal, agencies here. Same thing for state, local. They also can use, a case like this as well to have AI help some of their services. We all know public libraries are all over the place. You go in there, you talk to a librarian, they will help you out. But if this was AI, your librarian could be a 24-hour access to that staff knowledge. So something that could, is always available 24/7. Health and Medicaid agencies, it could help you read, translate, assist with, renewal forms, as I mentioned, chat with whatever language that you speak. The unemployment offices help guide you through different claims for your filings, answer any of your account questions. The DMV, a lot of us, a lot of headaches sometimes go in there, and it's a very, very, very long time waiting for things, and we might not even bring the right things with us. So this could help with appointment preparation, so you know what to bring with you. Things like real ID, registration renewals, just to kind of get you, there and knowing exactly what you should have, so your process is as quick as possible. So just a few use cases that can be used for this as these solutions out of the box are going to be able to help people who don't just speak English, but any language, and are going to offer a high return on investment to these companies as they're immediately freeing up agency employees, since they would otherwise have to field these questions or help with these tasks. Often they're the same things again and again, and this would really help them not have to do that as much. In addition to helping the public, this could also be used as an internal tool for employees to help provide guidance for anything that they are, questioning from a standpoint of their agency policies, or just helping for quality checks for different data that they might use. So I guess now that we've talked about a bunch of use cases, and so it sounds like this is a great service, but how does it actually work? So we'll just hop into the live demo now. So I will just hop over to this other screen here. And essentially, this is all, as I mentioned, built on top of Drupal. Drupal is a huge content management system used by so many commercial and especially government sites. And so we just wanted to make something very, very simple to install and use, where anyone could just download it, install it, and hit the ground and running. So this is our module page here. It's the Drupal.org project, AWS Bedrock Chat, as you can see here at the top. And essentially, all you have to do is download this module, which is publicly available and open source. If you want to see the source code, you can come right here and see it. And then you just configure it, drop it in the block, and you're good to go. So essentially, you can download it using Composer, which is the recommended way to download it. Or if you don't want to use a package manager, you could just come and download it from the code up top, download a zip or a tar file, and use it on your local, review the code there and your favorite IDE, and proceed however you'd like. So it's very simple to get going. So we'll just hop back to a Drupal instance here. Uh, for our demo purposes here, we'll just use a quick little site that we stood up following the Consumer Product Safety Commission. So everything is just publicly available data. Anyone can pull and scrape this data from the website and build something similar. So if you have your Bedrock chat module downloaded, it would just be a matter of enabling it. So we've already gone ahead and just turned this on. And then once you turn it on, it's very simple. You just go into your block layout and then you place it somewhere throughout your site. So we wanted to place it in our secondary footer. So we would just come to our footer and search for our block. Since it's enabled, it's right there as a block, AWS Bedrock Chat, and you would just click place block to place it on your footer. So we've just already gone ahead and done that. So we can see AWS Bedrock Chat is there, and we can hop back to the front end of our site, give it a refresh, and we see at the bottom, we've got this little dialogue or little icon, which denotes our chat. So it's very quick to get going. Like I mentioned, it was just a download, enabling, and placing the block, and that's pretty much it to get it going. Then at that point, it's just a matter of pointing it to the right spot. So if we come to our configuration, which is just under configuration, and then we come down to our web services, we see we have AWS Bedrock Chat here, which opens up our chat configuration, which consists of a authentication method of how you would like to authenticate to your AWS instances. So it supports a profile. So if you're running an AWS, it will just take it from your instance, access and secret keys, which we strongly discourage, as we don't want to store anything in the database unless we're doing some development work. But this is definitely a no-no for any production environments, but we will allow it for your development purposes. And then the environment variables, which is what we're using here, which just pulls this authentication from the environment. And that's what allows us to connect to our specific knowledge base. So we've already created one on the AWS side, and we're pointing to it using a Claude model here. And then so if you are wondering where this comes from, we'll just hop to the AWS side and you can check it out. So this other tab here, we've already got a knowledge base already created. So as we saw on the configuration, this is our knowledge base ID here. And essentially our knowledge base is just built from a bunch of different files. So this could be from your uploaded files or, your files in an S3 bucket, which is what we have here. So it's right here for just our demo, just a few files, nothing crazy, but essentially no matter how big your bucket is, this will be able to break it down and index them into a vector search, which would allow your knowledge base to essentially function with that retrieval augmented generation that we mentioned before. Each file that we have here is just a public file that comes from the agency's website, so anyone can go and pull this down, create this themselves, and then they'd be able to hit the ground and running with their own knowledge base. Of course, if you have your own files from your own business or agency, that's what you would use to point to. And then you can come and you could test it out. So essentially, you could say, I want to use my knowledge base, and you could select the model, and then you could test out how it responds to your different questions. So we have our Drupal side set up, which I showed you the Claude model. So we'll just go ahead and use it on that side. But essentially, if you wanted to perform some tasks beforehand, you could test it out with different models from here on the AWS side. And before we hop back into the Drupal side, I will just show you, since we're here, in addition to the knowledge base, we also have agents, as I mentioned. And this agent is just one that we created just for demo purposes. So essentially, it is our agent that we've got with our ID, which we'll see used on the Drupal side in a moment. And if we come here to the agent builder, we'll see it's just a agent that answers questions about CPSC. And there's a few instructions that we've given it. And it's got its own model to respond. And in this case, it's Claude 3.5 Sonnet. And one more thing to talk about before we leave the AWS side is the guardrails. So the guardrails, as I mentioned before, are things that help sort of box in the user from being able to kind of go off track or go outside the limits of what you would like for them to see. It's something that can limit content or, PII from coming back or profanity. So very easy to do. You would just create a guardrail, you would give it a name, and then you would essentially designate what sort of content filters, denied topics, etc. you would like it to have. And then you could apply it to your AI to follow these instructions and box the user in for any and all interactions with your chat. So that is essentially the basics of the AWS side. So let's go back to the Drupal side and see how this is done. So we'll just refresh this and we can see that we are using this knowledge base, the same ID that we saw before. And we'll just come back to the front end here and we will just ask it a basic question. So we click the button, we see, hi, how can we assist you today? So just some basic language, which you can set from the back end of the module. And I will say, tell me about CPSC. So something just very basic for it to go off and get the answer to. So it crunches all of this data in real time. There are no canned responses. So the AI, takes a moment to go out there and figure out what the response should be based off of the OpenSearch vector storage that we mentioned before. So it's come back and it says the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, CPSC, is an independent federal regulatory agency created in 1972 by the Consumer Product Safety Act. And then it talks a little bit more about the jurisdiction and a little bit about its mission. So great, it's able to go and give us some information about the agency, answer my question very directly and plainly without me having to do a lot of things for it. So now with this, we could take it a step further. We said, hey, this information sounds good, but where did we get this from? So now we can come into our settings here and we could actually come to our customization. We see our initial prompts that we saw for the chat, but now we can display some related files and we can exclude duplicates. And this will essentially be able to tell us where that information came from. And now say maybe we want to give it a little more pizzazz. We want to customize it a little. So our toggle button and our response icon, we want to set those. In addition to that, you can change it to have any sort of color setting that you want, or you can give it icons that you upload for any of the items on the interface. So we'll just save this, and then we'll come back and refresh, and we see automatically our icon has changed here. And then once we click into here, we now have a different icon for the response here based off of what we've set, which kind of customize it a little bit more to the website that we're on. So now if we come back and we say, tell me about CPSC, doing the same thing that we did before, going out to AWS, it comes back with our response. And at this point, it comes back with a file. And if we come take a look at it, it is a file that it pulled the information from. And we can see that it talks about, some of our answer here about what CPSC is. So this helps in terms of giving users direct access to the source material where these answers come from. If this answer was spread across, many different documents, or it could be, old historical information on your website, it would give you a list of files relevant to the answer of the question that the user has provided. So this is just a basic run through of how the knowledge base works. You can ask it, basic questions that we asked about the agency, or you can go in a little bit more in depth. So if I wanted to ask, tell me about fireworks safety. It's maybe a little late for 4th of July now, but if we were doing some fireworks in some areas where it was allowed to be done, we could come here and ask, what kind of things, would be relevant to that. And it gives us an answer as it did before, and then it points us to two different PDFs that are relevant in its response, which is the fireworks fact sheet. And so we were able to come here and see some of the information directly, as well as getting our response from the chat UI here. So this was just a quick run through to show you how it works here with the basic knowledge base. In addition to a question and answer here in English, let's say I didn't speak English. Let's say I spoke Spanish. I could come here and say English to Spanish just so I could get an actual translation. Tell me about safety hazards, let's say about pools. And this is the Spanish translation. I could take this back over here, paste it in. So even though I've been speaking to it in English this whole time, now I've switched to a different language. It's going to automatically detect the language and respond in kind. And same thing as before, it's going to send us to some relevant information that it pulled the data from in the language that the user has supplied. So these items are pool safety, but in a different language, in this case, Spanish. So this is just to show that it doesn't matter what language that you give it, it can respond in that particular language back to you. And so even though we're here and it says chat with us and type your message here in English, an example would be if we were on a different page, say a Spanish page, this page here, with its text in Spanish, we now click the button and we see it's got a different prompt. So instead of the English prompt over here of, hi, how can we assist you today, and type your message here, it now has the Spanish equivalent. So this is just something that is able to be set from the module. It will dynamically pull all languages on your Drupal site and show it to you here. And in this case, we just put in the translations for our original text for Spanish. And if you are using any other languages, it will give you that option as well for anything that is enabled currently on your Drupal website. So this pretty much just shows how it can be easily extended and customized, as well as translations. And so now if we were to hop back over here to our configuration, we can change it from our knowledge base over to an agent. So the agent that I showed before, which we've already got set up here, we'll just go ahead and save that. And we will hop back to our front end over here. And then we can go ahead and ask it another question. So to tell me about CPSC. And so it's going to go back to AWS and it's going to come through the agent over here. So we will see that agent ID that we've provided it here. And it's going to use the Claude 3.5 sonnet that I mentioned before. It's going to take our instructions into consideration. But in addition to all of this, we are able to kind of play around with different orchestration strategies. So most of this is the default, but we have added a little bit of extra in here. So in our knowledge-based response, we've essentially told it to be excited. So if we come back to our answer, whoa, we have got the most excited response we can think of. Oh my goodness, thank you for asking about the CPSC. I'm beyond thrilled to share this incredible information with you. And then it goes on to tell you about what an absolutely amazing independent federal regulatory agency this is, as well as all of the information about it. So now we can see that this is over the top, a much different response. The same question we asked, tell me about CPSC, up here has now given us a completely different response here. And this is all based off of the instructions that we've provided on our AWS agent on this side. So of course you can give it whatever you want. This is some of the basic sort of AWS sort of jargon that it uses for its instructions. And then we've added a lot of other things for it to consider when it responds to you, which is what we see here. And really, we've done this and made it so sort of extravagant just so you can see the true visible difference between switching from the two. They're kind of night and day in their responses, even though they give you the same information. So we could, so we just ask it something basic. So if we wanted to ask it, what was CPSC's budget in, let's say, fiscal year 2024, it'll do the same thing. It will go through all of these instructions here one by one. When giving instructions, it's always a good thing to tell it what type of tone to use, giving it examples of how to respond. So this is what we've given it here. And then, of course, you can play with the temperature, which is essentially the creativity of it, to let it sort of go, even more creative or less creative based off the different prompts that you've given it. So this could be very helpful for large sites, which might have different sections where you want to have a certain tone or just certain results returned in a different way based off the agent. So even if you had a, say, app and a widget, you could tell it to return JSON or XML and it would return it in kind. So here it's, tells us to hold on to our seats, essentially that the budget is 212.6 million for the fiscal year, and then, talks about how exciting things are at the agency and all of the great things that they've done with that budget. So excellent. So we've seen what the agent can do. We'll just switch it back to the knowledge base so you can just once again see the difference between the two. We don't even have to change out anything. We just switched it on the back end and essentially will automatically come and update it here. So now we validated. So this is, as we see, much shorter of a response, right to the point, because it doesn't have all of those instructions that we've given it. But of course, you can give it as much or as little instructions as you want. And then, of course, it will create our, pointing off to our files, and then we can go there and see the budget to, confirm that information, of course, if we need to. So this was just a quick run through of how this all works. Um, if we just want really just for you to see how easy it is to set up and point to this AWS Bedrock knowledge base, as well as switching to an agent and back. It's very simple, just clicking back and forth. We also touched on the guardrails, as well as testing from the AWS side. Um, and then the Droops, apologies. And then for the Drupal side, we talked about the configuration of the knowledge base on the module as well as the agent, placing the block for the chat, and then some customizations in terms of colors or icons, as well as the different foreign languages to give it different prompts. So that really concludes all of our demo. Of course, if you'd like to see more, you can always reach out to us directly, either by email, drupal@cetacorp.com, which you'll see at the end of this presentation, or the contact form on our website on www.cetacorp.com. And I guess just before we close out, we'll just touch on a few basic things that can help kind of maximize your efforts when using AI chatbots in general. And I guess the first one and biggest one is that data curation beats model size. And this is so true. Essentially, Bedrock will evaluate all sources for the best answers. Any AI model will. And however clean and properly structured the HTML is, the documents are properly tagged or metadata, the more you have that cleanliness of data, you're going to get better results. So even if you've got some huge, massive model with, being very robust to extrapolate from data, make connections between all sorts of information, they're going to do their best to work with what they have, but nothing will ever be giving it clean data up front. So the better that your data is structured and sort of tagged, metadata to accompany it, the better results you're going to have for your users and the better experience they're going to have. We talked about the system prompts, which were essentially the instructions that we gave it, and also the guardrails. So those templates, the orchestration templates that I showed, where we put in our instructions as well as guardrails, essentially they evaluate all of the messages that come from the users, but the instructions given on that side for the guardrails or those templates, they're always going to be weighted more heavily for the AI than anything the user says. So if the user asks you to do something that contradicts what your system instructions or guardrails say, it's just not going to do it. So to be able to have this, we showed it on the AWS side. And one great thing that we're going to have in our next release from the module is you're also going to be able to set these system prompts from the Drupal side. So it's going to be essentially some overriding information that you can set from the website backend that will go along with all of the messages coming across. Then the observation and iterating over the information that you have. This is essentially going to be depending on your organization's user data policies. But for example, you could store some anonymous transcripts of what your users have been sending you just to do some analysis on it in the future to kind of understand what they're interested in, what they're asking for, what their pain points are. Because essentially all of their issues and unanswered questions that they're having today can easily become a content update for tomorrow. And that will help make things easier for the users to get to what they're looking for without having to take other steps or extra steps to find it. And then finally, role-based access to specific agents. So this is something that is another item that will be coming out in our upcoming module release, which instead of a single configuration for the chat, which we showed, each individual block that you place will be able to override it to have its own customizations for look and feel, as well as pointing to its own agent or knowledge base. So pretty much everything that you do with the central configuration that I showed can be done on a per block basis. This will be great for any sites that have differing sections where you might have different audiences to all of the different sections of your sites. So you can tell it to focus on certain information over others or speak in a certain way or tone, and just kind of helps you partition things out. Or if you have internal users and you want to use it sort of as a internal knowledge base, you could also do that to say if this person has a certain role and they're logged in, give them a certain agent that they could use that will supersede the ones that are available to the public. So just some fine-grained control of how your chatbots can be utilized, on a depending on who is actually using it. And then we'll just close out just mentioning a couple things about the guardrails. We talked about some of the basic stuff of it. We went through essentially what was the standard tier, which essentially would be able to scan for content, things like PII, social security numbers, things like that. So very, very basic, but still very helpful. And then the advanced tier, which you could enable, which essentially would allow you to do custom regex rules. So if you had some FOIA documents out there, from decades ago, but found that some of these should be exempt. You could set a regex to say, if this number comes up, make sure not to return this document. So a lot of powerful things you can do with regex abilities, as well as you can do grounding checks to make sure it understands what it's being told and what it's responding, because any AI can hallucinate, of course, but the more you use it and the more you train it, the less likely that is to happen. Will have higher transactions per second, and of course, violence, profanity thresholds for foreign languages, and all of this is going to work with the FedRAMP, enabled endpoints where you're going to have the secure endpoints to have data encrypted in transit throughout the AWS GovCloud. And one last thing to mention, since the Drupal community does have its own AI module, they have submodules. One is the Bedrock provider, and the difference between this and that is that the Bedrock provider is still in beta state at this time, so ours is fully production ready for any production grade websites. Our module can be set up within minutes. As I showed, it was just downloading, enabling, and configuring. And our module doesn't require maintaining multiple submodules for chat. So with the main AI module, there'd be a lot of things to do to essentially get to the chat portion for a public chat bot, but ours is ready to go within minutes. So we really just wanted to make something super easy for those that don't have that full technical background or developers to set everything up for them. So a very one-stop shop AI chatbot. And then a couple things you'll see in the future. As I mentioned, the configurable system prompts in the UI will have the full page chat interface. So if you don't want to have just a small little pop-up, you can have a full page chat. As I mentioned as well, individual configuration. So you can point to knowledge bases or agents for each individual block. And then we will be supporting confirmation of actions. So users can confirm or essentially deny if they want to take an action, and integration with a third-party deep chat UI, which is used for a lot of chats out there. So people can extend the UI of their Drupal chat even further by overriding things. So that is what we've got planned in this quarter here. And that is everything for our demonstration and walkthrough. Feel free to give it a try at the Drupal community. You can just search for AWS Bedrock Chat. Feel free to star our module if you'd like in repo, and reach out to us on Drupal.org or at Drupal@cedicorp.com. And I will thank you for watching all of this. And if there's anyone that has questions currently, I'm available to answer.